Hello, and welcome to a look at the U.S. economy. Now, I know what you're thinking. Talking about the economy is about as fun as a root canal performed by a mime with a tax audit fetish. But buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into this economic mosh pit. We'll be exploring everything from the fallout of the 2008 financial crisis, which, let's be honest, is the gift that keeps on giving, to the rise of the gig economy, where everyone's a freelancer until they are crying into their laptop at 2 a.m. We're talking income inequality, automation anxiety, and the ever-present question of will robots take my job, or just make me feel completely insignificant? So grab your thinking caps and maybe a stiff drink because things are about to get economically interesting. 2008. Remember those heady days? Lehman Brothers was still a thing, subprime mortgages were just fun words to say, and the only people who knew what a credit default swap was were the ones who were busy crashing the global economy with them. It was a simpler time. The financial crisis hit like a runaway roller coaster on a track greased with bad decisions and deregulation. Suddenly, everyone from your neighbor to your grandma was talking about bailouts, quantitative easing, and the terrifying prospect of living in a cardboard box. The government, in its infinite wisdom, decided to handle the whole thing like a game of economic whack-a-mole. They bailed out banks, propped up the auto industry, and threw money at the problem with the kind of reckless abandon usually reserved for bachelorette parties in Vegas. And you know what? It kinda worked. The economy slowly clawed its way back from the abyss, like a zombie determined to rejoin the world of the living, though some would argue it still craves brains and occasionally groans about mortgage-backed securities. It was a long, slow recovery, kind of like watching paint dry on a sloth, but eventually things started looking up. Unemployment fell, the stock market went on a tear, and people started using the phrase booming economy without a hint of irony. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Because while the economy may have been booming, it wasn't exactly booming for everyone. In fact, for many Americans it felt more like a dull roar in the distance, audible but not exactly life-changing. And that brings us to the very thorny issue of the gig economy, where dreams of being your own boss collide with the harsh reality of no paid time off and constantly hustling for your next paycheck. It's a world where everyone's a freelancer, an independent contractor, or as I like to call them, a CEO of their own precarious existence. Now, being your own boss sounds great in theory. You set your own hours, you answer to no one, you can wear pajamas to your home office, or, let's be honest, your couch. But the gig economy is less take this job and shove it and more take this ever-shifting pile of contract work with questionable benefits and hope you can cobble together enough income to afford both rent and ramen. Job security? What's that? Benefits? Please, you're lucky if you get a free app with that ride-sharing gig. The gig economy is basically the Wild West of the modern workforce. Exciting, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. But it's not all doom and gloom. The gig economy can be a lifeline for people who need flexible work arrangements, like parents, caregivers, or anyone who values autonomy over the soul-crushing monotony of a traditional 9-to-5. And let's be honest, the traditional job market isn't exactly a paradise of stability and security these days either. Companies are still laying off workers with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for office pizza parties. So, is the gig economy the future of work, or just a symptom of a larger economic malaise? The jury's still out on that one, but one thing's for sure. It's here to stay, so we better figure out how to make it work for everyone, not just the algorithm overlords. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the elephant in the economy: income inequality. It's the economic equivalent of watching a pie-eating contest, where a select few contestants get to use industrial-sized vacuum cleaners, while everyone else gets a spork. The gap between the rich and everyone else has been widening faster than a billionaire's waistline after a 5-star buffet. We're talking a level of wealth disparity that would make even Marie Antoinette blush, though she'd probably just suggest letting them eat cake made of money. This isn't just a case of some people having more zeros in their bank accounts. It's about economic segregation, where the wealthy live in a different reality, with access to better education, healthcare, and even cleaner air. Meanwhile, the rest of us are stuck in economy class, hoping the plane doesn't crash and burn before we can reach our destination of slightly less financial anxiety. Policymakers are locked in a never-ending debate about how to address this issue. Should we raise the minimum wage? Tax the wealthy? Invest in education and job training? Or just accept that the American dream is now a game of monopoly, rigged in favor of the top 1%? It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but one thing's for sure, ignoring it is like pretending that gaping chasm in the earth isn't there. Eventually, it's going to swallow us all. Chapter 4. Robots, Reskilling, and the Remote Revolution. The future of work is here, and it's weird. Remember when the future of work was all about flying cars and robot butlers? Well, the future is now, and it turns out the robots are coming for our jobs, but they're doing it while we're all wearing sweatpants and attending Zoom meetings from our couches. Technology is transforming the workforce faster than you can say algorithmic bias. Automation is replacing jobs in manufacturing, customer service, and even fields like law and medicine. And while some people are busy freaking out about the robot uprising, others are busy trying to figure out how to retrain for jobs that don't yet exist. It's like playing a game of economic musical chairs where the music never stops and the chairs keep disappearing. But hey, at least we have the option to work remotely now. That's right. The pandemic forced companies to embrace remote work, and now everyone's realized that commuting is actually the 9th circle of hell. Of course, remote work has its own set of challenges, like maintaining work-life balance when your office is also your living room, and trying to look presentable for video calls when you're actually wearing pajama bottoms. But it's also opened up opportunities for people who live in rural areas or have disabilities that make it difficult to work outside the home. So the future of work is a mixed bag of robot overlords, remote possibilities, and the constant need to adapt and learn new skills. It's enough to make you want to crawl back into bed and pull the covers over your head. But then you remember that robots haven't figured out how to make a decent cup of coffee yet, so there's still hope for humanity. Chapter 5. Silicon Valley, Land of Unicorns, Disruption, and the Occasional Existential Crisis. Ah, Silicon Valley. Where dreams are coded into reality, billion-dollar companies are created in garages, or more accurately, parents' basements. And the only thing more common than a Tesla is a sense of unearned entitlement. Tech giants like Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, or Meta, whatever they're calling themselves this week, have become more powerful than some small countries, with more data than the Library of Congress and more influence than your average dictator. They're the gatekeepers of the digital age, controlling what we see, what we buy, and even how we think. But it's not all doom and gloom in the land of venture capitalists and avocado toast. Silicon Valley is also a hotbed of innovation, where startups are tackling everything from climate change to healthcare to the eternal quest for a dating app that doesn't make you want to die alone. Of course, with great power comes great responsibility, or at least it should. But Silicon Valley has a bit of a reputation for moving fast and breaking things, often without considering the consequences. Privacy, what's privacy? Antitrust laws, those are just suggestions, right? The tech industry is facing a reckoning as policymakers and the public grapple with the implications of their unchecked power. Will they rise to the challenge and become responsible stewards of the digital age? Or will they continue to prioritize profit over people? Only time will tell. But in the meantime, can someone please invent a way to block all those annoying spam calls? Chapter 6. Trade, Tariffs, and the Global Tug-of-War. It's a small world after all, especially when it comes to the economy. Remember when globalization was going to usher in an era of peace, prosperity, and the free flow of goods and services across borders? Well, it turns out globalization is more like a messy family reunion, with everyone arguing over who got the bigger slice of pie and blaming each other for the burnt casserole. The US economy is inextricably linked to the global economy, which is great when things are good, but not so much when they're not. Trade wars, tariffs, and supply chain disruptions have become the norm, as countries try to protect their own interests, often at the expense of others. China in particular has become both a major trading partner and a major economic rival to the United States. It's a delicate balancing act, trying to maintain a good relationship while also competing for resources, markets, and global influence. It's like trying to play a friendly game of Monopoly with someone who's secretly hiding hotels under the table. Globalization has its winners and losers, and unfortunately many American workers have found themselves on the losing side, as jobs have been outsourced to countries with lower wages and fewer labor regulations. It's enough to make you want to buy everything made in America, if you can even find anything that isn't at least partially manufactured overseas. So, the next time you're feeling overwhelmed by the complexities of the global economy, just remember, we're all in this together, whether we like it or not. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go try to find a Made in USA label on my phone. Chapter 7. Healthcare, Education, and the Crushing Weight of Debt. The American Dream or a Nightmare? The American Dream. The idea that anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve success through hard work and determination. It's a beautiful sentiment, like a freshly baked apple pie topped with a heaping scoop of student loan debt and a side of medical bills you can't afford. Healthcare and education costs in the United States have reached astronomical levels, making it increasingly difficult for ordinary Americans to achieve financial security, let alone the elusive dream. It's like trying to climb a mountain while carrying a refrigerator on your back and being charged a toll every few feet. The healthcare system is a labyrinthine nightmare where even those with insurance can be driven into bankruptcy by a single medical emergency. And don't even get me started on the pharmaceutical industry, where the cost of life-saving drugs can make you wish you hadn't bothered getting sick in the first place. Education is supposed to be the great equalizer, but it's become another tool for widening the gap between the haves and the have-nots. College costs have skyrocketed, leaving graduates saddled with mountains of debt before they even enter the workforce. It's enough to make you want to skip college altogether and become a social media influencer. But then you remember that you have morals, and also no discernible talent. Policymakers are engaged in a perpetual tug-of-war over how to address these issues, with no easy solutions in sight. It's enough to make you want to scream into the void, but then you remember that the void is probably already filled with unpaid medical bills and student loan statements. Remember when owning a home was considered a cornerstone of the American dream? Well, somewhere along the way, that dream turned into a reality TV show where everyone's bidding against each other for a fixer-upper with a leaky roof and a family of raccoons living in the attic. The housing market is a wild ride, with prices soaring higher than a SpaceX rocket, leaving many would-be homeowners wondering if they'll ever be able to afford more than a cardboard box under a bridge. It's a seller's market out there, folks, and the competition is fierce. In some cities, you need to be a millionaire just to qualify for a mortgage on a studio apartment the size of a walk-in closet. And don't even think about trying to find a place with a yard, unless you're willing to move to a remote island populated by feral cats and the ghosts of disappointed homebuyers. The suburbs, once considered a haven for families fleeing the city, have become just as unaffordable, as remote work has made it possible for people to live further away from their jobs, driving up demand and prices. It's enough to make you want to give up on the whole homeownership thing and embrace the nomadic lifestyle of a digital nomad, traveling the world with nothing but a laptop and a dream, and a hefty trust fund. But hey, at least we can all take comfort in the fact that even if we can't afford to buy a home, we can still live vicariously through those HGTV shows where everyone has an unlimited budget and renovations always go according to plan, except for that one episode where the homeowners found a hidden room filled with bees, but let's not talk about that. Chapter 9, Going Green: Can We Save the Planet and the Economy at the Same Time? Spoiler alert, we don't really have a choice. Remember when climate change was just a theory that scientists were debating? Well, it's not a theory anymore, folks. It's real, it's here, and it's coming for your beach house, assuming you were lucky enough to snag one in this housing market. The good news is that we can still do something about it. The bad news is that it's going to require a massive, coordinated effort from governments, businesses, and individuals. It's like trying to turn a cruise ship around in a bathtub, but instead of a bathtub, it's the Earth's atmosphere, and instead of a cruise ship, it's our entire global economy. The transition to a more sustainable future is going to be messy, expensive, and probably involve a lot of arguing. But it's also an opportunity to create new industries, new jobs, and a more equitable and just society. It's like breaking up with your toxic ex who's also holding your Netflix password hostage. It's going to be tough at first, but ultimately, you'll be better off without them. Renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, green building practices. These are just a few of the areas where we can make a difference. And it's not just about saving the planet, it's about saving ourselves. Because if we don't address climate change, the economy will be the least of our worries. We're talking about a future of extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and mass migrations. It's enough to make you want to invest in a bunker and a lifetime supply of canned goods. But instead of giving in to despair, Let's choose hope. Let's choose action. Let's choose to create a future where we can have both a healthy planet and a thriving economy. Because we're not doomed yet, but we're getting pretty darn close. So, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of the US economy in all its messy, complicated glory. We've covered everything from the fallout of the 2008 financial crisis to the rise of the gig economy, from income inequality to automation anxiety, from the housing market to the climate crisis. It's enough to make you want to bury your head in the sand and pretend it's all just a bad dream. But the reality is, the economy is a lot like that weird mole on your back. You can try to ignore it, but it's not going away on its own. The good news is that we have the power to shape the future of the economy. By understanding the challenges and opportunities we face, we can make informed decisions that benefit everyone, not just the privileged few. So, stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay hopeful. Because the future of the American economy is still being written, and it's up to all of us to make sure it's a story worth telling. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the economic landscape of modern America. Stay tuned for more insights and updates on how these key aspects continue to shape our economy.